Welcome to the AlmighTees channel. Today we're going to embark on a new series we call Screen Printing 101. These will be videos based on the fundamentals of the screen printing process. But in this week's episode, we're going to address the age-old question, where do I burn an image into my screen so that it falls in the right place on my shirt? And we're going to talk about that next. Here I am out on press, and the first thing that I think about is placement. Where I want my image to fall on my screen heavily depends on placement. How far down my image will be from my next seam, and let me explain. Standard placement in screen printing is usually what we refer to as 4 fingers or 3 inches down from the seam of the neck. So if I want to be able to load my shirt where my seam falls right over the edge, I'm going to want my image to fall 4 fingers or approximately 3 inches down from that seam. Before we can do that, we need to make sure we know where on the platen arm our platen needs to fall, because most screen printing presses, they're adjustable. Now I know where mine needs to fall for that optimum placement. And this is just a go-by for example purposes and what works on this press, but you take a screen, you load it into your screen clamp. And try to center it up just by eyeballing. Eyeballing is just fine. Lock it in. Now if I want to know, and a blank screen is always a good idea to use so you can see through it really well. And if I know that I want that image to fall 3 inches down from the edge, I take my ruler and I get the edge of my platen right where the 3-inch mark is, and that tells me that from the outside dimension that image needs to fall 5 inches from the outside dimension of my frame in the center. So the next thing is we have to we need a center line on our platen. So I'm going to measure the width of my platen. It's a little under 15 inches. I split the difference on the overage. And that leaves me at 7.5, and I make a little mark. I do the same thing near the top of my platen. And I make a little mark. And I take my ruler and my magic marker, thin preferably, thin magic marker. Now that's going to help me to determine what is my center line on my platen. Now let's talk about left chests. How do we know where a left chest should fall on a t-shirt? Well, that 3-inch down from the seam still applies. You just need to figure out how far over that it needs to be. For me and our purposes, I'm going to measure 3 inches down. And then I like ours, the inside edge of the design, to fall 1.5 inches over. Now this one's a little bit off because this was a smaller left chest, so I pushed it this way just a hair. But normally 4-inch wide left chests will be 1.5 inches. 4 wide left chests will usually be 1.5 inches over from center, 3 inches down, or 5 inches from the edge of your screen. So now we know where the images need to fall in regard or in reference to the frame or the screen itself. So we just need to then transfer those measurements over to your exposure unit. So here we are over at the exposure unit. I built this exposure unit for this explicit purpose that I could create this raised lip near my glass and my exposure glass with the light source down in the bottom. And that reason is so that I could butt the bottom of the screen up to this point and then the sides up to this point. And as long as everything was square, everything would be fine. So I know my screens are 20 by 24s. So I came over here and I just moved that measurement, which I'm looking for is my center line. So half of 20 is 10. So I knew my edge of my screen, or the end of my screen, was going to fall right there. And then I made a mark 10 inches right at this end and 10 inches at this end. And that gives me 10 inches from this side at the top, 10 inches from this side at the bottom. And then now I have a center line. Now what I normally do is take I've got a T-square, and I line it up on my mark at the top and my mark at the bottom. And now that right there tells me that's my center line for my screen. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to turn my backlights on. I've got my screen, or my art. So I've got my art, I've got my film. Slide it underneath my T-square. I've got some little feet on the bottom so it's raised. I've already got measurements. As you can see there, I've got a measurement there that determines that that's 5 inches. So for us here, all I have to do is make sure that the center line is lined up at the top there. And my registration mark on my art is lined up with each, so that it's following the center line. And I tape it down. Now it's ready. Once I remove my T-square, it's ready for exposure. Same thing applies if you're going to do a left chest. We try to put left chests and back for the same orders on the same screen if at all possible, but for this particular order we were unable to. And I thought I had that left chest around here somewhere. Here it is. So I would do something very similar for my left chest, as I'm still on my center line. And I just put the top of the design 5 inches from this point and tape it down. Remove, and you're ready for exposure. Now if it's the other end, if you wanted to and had room to put something on your screen down on this end, we've got it still marked at 5 inches. So for instance, these wouldn't go together, but let's say if they did, I would just slide that under my T-square, get it lined up properly, line it up to my center line, hold it down, that hold it into place, throw tape on that bad boy, remove your T-square, burn your screen, you're in business. We hope you found this video helpful and informative. Would you give this video a like? Or better yet, why not just subscribe to the channel? Heck, you can even leave a nasty comment. Negative engagement is better than none. And if you have any ideas for any future Screen Printing 101 videos, please drop those in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.